ROI is hard to measure sometimes because sometimes it's quality of life. Sometimes it's not necessarily cost. Sometimes it just makes our lives a little better and creates less stress.
Well, welcome back to the Build Different podcast. This is going to be amazing. Fellas, this view, can we talk about this for just a hot minute? Probably the best podcast setup we've ever had of the location at a conference with this room. Shout out to AGC. They've really hooked us up here.
We really upgraded from the our makeshift Procore booth post-acquisition when we just, said, hey, we're going to do a podcast in about 3 days. I didn't even know if we had microphones by the time, and we figured it out. But
I feel like us coming back to a conference to record definitely brings back those days of Brian and I being like, who are we going to have on this thing? What are we even going to talk about?
Yeah, you could have had the pickleball losers kind of come off like they have a big pickleball court in the back, if you see it.
Yeah.
And so you could have had those people.
I'm really thinking we just bring these headsets down there and just start commentating. And maybe that's how we get people to come up here.
That would be good.
It's like, what are you guys recording? Oh, we're recording a podcast, but we're also critiquing your pickleball skills.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Is this the first conference they've ever had a pickleball court at?
I think so. I think it's, the cult of pickleball has started, and it's got to penetrate every segment, so even the conference.
I mean, maybe we should have it at our conference, Brian. Pickleball?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see how it goes here first. And
I'm going to have you move your mic up a little bit. There you go. Yeah, sounds great. Just, we're learning these microphones first time. Jarvis, I feel like you and I look like we're commentating the Masters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jim Nance, you a fan?
Easy, Tony, easy.
Easy. No, this is great.
Yes, I'm going to take a photo to see how it compares come this weekend and see if we can do an overlay.
I've always wanted to be a sportscaster, and this is as close as I can get. So I'll take it for what it's worth. But welcome back. If you're tuning in with us and you're just listening, I would encourage you to watch it because we got some really cool stuff that we're going to show here. But we are actually here at the AGC National Convention. Did I say that right, Felipe?
That's right.
AGC National Convention. And we were invited here by AGC to come and be in this ridiculously awesome bird's nest overlooking the conference hall, expo hall for this. How many people do you think are out here?
Probably about 2,000 attendees.
2,000. How many exhibitors do you think?
Exhibitors, I'm not sure the total count, but this is the biggest booth of that they've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, it is stacked.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking across.
They made a great map. You kind of need it.
Oh, the map? Yeah.
So the map's
not from
super
Milwaukee.
clear.
You see Milwaukee on there? They are smack dab in the middle.
You can't miss them.
Cannot miss Milwaukee.
Otherwise, great group of folks. I mean, it's definitely the biggest one. So.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. Well, one, how we even got here. Thank you for the invite, Felipe. I mean, what a treat to be here, and I've been wanting to have you on here for, I don't know, I said 6 years before we recorded, but is that right?
Just about, yeah. I mean, I've been a big fan of instruction site drone deploy for years. I've been using them separately when they were separate on, separate companies, and then since they've formed, so it's a fantastic tool. So.
Well, we're not a back scratcher here. We don't even talk about it unless you guys talk about it.
Yeah, no, so. I mean, no, honestly, it's been great. And I just can't. I don't know what I'm getting at there.
You're amazed that you're actually here. Is what you're trying to get at. There you go.
No,
it's been fun.
It's been.
I didn't even intro Felipe. He's actually a good friend of mine outside of this. This is just a big ploy to bring all of our friends and colleagues on. But yeah. I see the tears. It's okay. Yeah, I'll get you a tissue.
It's hard.
I knew you guys were close when I used to see Grant's name pop up under your projects, actually.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah, no, we had a good time kind of like figuring out how things are working and test driving and just kind of being guinea pigs for everything.
Yeah.
So it's been fun.
Felipe is the ultimate guinea pig. And it's weird to say if you could like create the ideal guinea pig. This is going to, fellas, we got to diverge off of this quick. But like, how you test projects, which is actually what we're going to talk about, like how you filter through different tools, how you procure them, how you test them. Anyway, that is where I think our friendship really started, was like me being in the office, you being in the field, being like, throw anything you want at me, man, and let's test it out.
Yeah, no, I always kind of advertise myself as like, hey, if you want to run something through me, let's test it in the field. Let's make sure it really works.
There's a picture, I feel like, of us, I don't know, Connor, I'll have to find this for you to show in the actual video, but like a before and after, like the first time I trained you to fly a drone to the like last time that you were starting to fly it. It's kind of crazy.
We recreated it. Yeah, I remember that. So it was on our first big job.
Yeah.
At least my first big job. And then with the old DJI Phantom.
Oh, yeah.
And then fast forward to a couple more years, and we recreated that same view of the photo.
Nice.
So different companies have the same partnership.
The behind the scenes of that was actually even better than the pictures. Like, wait, you got to move over here. Like,
Yeah.
I'm looking at it this way. And
Do you have a hat?
Yeah. You weren't wearing a jacket? No, it's fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, many job sites, many hours spent, I think, just talking even after hours of like
Oh, yeah.
tech and what's working.
Remember
what's not.
COVID when we were testing? You even came over during COVID, and we were trying to test out
In your garage?
Yeah, we
Oh,
were trying
yeah.
to test out something. It was like I was bored, like trying to figure something out, and I was like, "Hey, can we do 2 drones up in the air at the same time and stream?" And that's what I was testing
That
out.
was crazy. I forgot about that.
And so we were trying to do remote testing for.
Like OAC meetings, right? Like you were wanting to stream it into a.
Yeah, the architects couldn't come out. One of the architects, she was about to have a baby, so she couldn't come out, and so, and the owner couldn't. They couldn't be on site.
Yeah.
And so we figured out a way to live stream the drone view through
Share
Zoom.
the screen, yeah.
Yeah,
Dude,
and we
I remember that.
punched the exterior of a building. It was pretty bad. It was kind of at the time, it was pretty cutting edge because it really wasn't. You couldn't go to YouTube and figure it out. And so
Dude, that was the ultimate garage like work session. I remember you texted me and were like, "What are you doing? You want to come over to my garage?"
yeah, bring another drone. I need another drone.
Like 2 dudes just like trying to figure out, and that was actually pretty cool because we like
It
shared the
worked.
screen. It worked.
It did work.
And
It worked.
I think a week later though, you're like, dude, something's not working right. You like actually get put it through its paces on the site, and it was like, dude, this didn't quite work. And
We ended up recording it,
that's right,
and it was good. And then we did it with 360. So
dude, crazy. So sorry, fellas, we're
No, yeah,
stealing the
I
show.
just feel like
here.
I'm witnessing like a Woz and Steve Jobs type of conversation play back from the garage times. So.
All great ideas started at a garage. And dude, you had a sweet garage setup too. Your like motorcycle was on one side, your workbenches were on the other.
yeah, still doing it.
Dude,
Yeah.
crazy.
So-
Well, we're gonna have some fun talking about this. The reason why, Felipe, you're such a awesome guest for the listeners that we have on here is this topic that we were actually talking about at lunch a couple weeks ago of like, it's kind of gotten crazy of new tools that are coming out, how you procure them, how do you even like, what do you do from the first outreach, LinkedIn, email of like, hey, I see you're a da-da-da. Do you want to test this product?
Sure.
And it was fascinating because we got on this topic of like, how do you even handle that? Because it's an honor. Honor is maybe a strong word. It's a pleasure to want to take a demo or see how something works, but you also have a day job and you want to help them because they're obviously wanting to innovate in this industry, but you also have other things that you want to do. That's what we're going to talk about is really just the whole form that you had, how you evaluated it, what your kind of parameters and guidelines were. But before that, I mean, Jarvis, what I feel like having been on both sides, coming to and fro, and like seeing a lot of this stuff, what I'm very curious to have your questions to Felipe because I think what's cool about some of this is like you've seen how it's really progressed through contractors, and then also on the software side of it too now of like what we're doing here. And so, yeah, are you excited to kind of get into?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, I mean, my background kind of similar in the, I didn't have a garage to mess around with, but like just an idea pops up. Can we try this? Is there some sort of hardware, software, tech stack that we could combine or, duct tape together to make something work? And then it's how do we gauge how it impacted the job? Then how do we get it to repeat on another job? How do we
Scale it.
Not standardize it, but yeah, scale it, be able to share that word of mouth story with another project and then replicate that success and be able to push it even further. So I'm excited to dive into this with you.
Yeah, this is gonna be great. Brian, what do you got over there?
I'm actually more focused on the follow up. I think very often people can get the momentum going, but how do you keep executive teams, kind of other people in the company, kind of interested that this thing is still going on? I think nowadays, like there's so many new things coming out every other week. Something's really cool. It's like, oh, right, like that brand new car just got released, and then the week after, it's like, oh, Mercedes just released that, or so and so just released that.
Yep.
So I want to hear about that.
Let's talk a little bit before we dive into that, though, how we got here. So you obviously sit on some committees with AGC. You've been at a couple contractors that kind of have seen how, I'd say just different people approach it. But
Sure.
yeah, give us a little 5-minute
clip
spiel
notes.
of like, how did we get to this point? Because not only are you super involved with AGC, but you've walked the walk. Like you've done some of this stuff on site. So give the listeners a little background of who you are before we dive into that specific.
Yeah, big picture. I've been lucky to work with a lot of great teams, a lot of good companies, mostly healthcare construction. Started with Beck, joined Scouts Group for a bit, and then I start with Brassfield next week. So really excited. And through all of those journeys and different roles, from being on it's been on operations from PM side to super, even at one point doing ops tech, and then going back to operations. Just really focused on what is working for the field. Like, how are we executing using these tools, and how are they really working, and giving people the ability to make decisions quicker. And that's really kind of the main focus and driver for being a guinea pig, and like driving it and testing it, and like, oh, this didn't work, let's tweak it, let's move it, And then to your point about how do you track in change management, continuous education, through that process is making sure that we're collecting that, and then when a new project starts, it's like getting there early and making sure that they're aware of it. And that's really, I think, the way we did, making sure that we build on that momentum. But so on the operations side, working through that on the work side, and then on the industry side, get involved with AGC. DFW has a great local chapter with Texo. It's where we combine contractors and subcontractors. And so that's one of 89 chapters in the country that feed into the national AGC. And so I got to be a part of that, equivalent young leadership group at the national level. And through that, you kind of get out what you put in life, right? And so that exposed me to the Project Innovation Delivery Committee. Grant, you mentioned that's the big thing I'm a part of, and I've been lucky to contribute to that group. I'm actually the chair. I'm going into the second year of being the chair of that group. And so that group really focuses on our mission is really creating digestible deliverables for companies of all sizes, small, medium, and large, that they can take to improve on their current delivery processes. And at the same time, they are exposed to new and innovative ways on how to use new technologies. And that's kind of our goal. And so with that being said, a big part of that group is we just had our first session, our first meeting of that group this last Monday. And we had a good interactive session where we kind of collected the tech stack for everybody, from HR to ERP to reality capture, estimating, the whole 9 yards. And it was just cool seeing where everybody laid out. And so,
how many people were in that meeting?
That meeting were probably about 40 people.
Okay. 40 companies?
40 different people.
Okay.
Yeah, like individual people.
Okay.
The committee probably has about 20 people. And so we meet it's like a cadence of 6 weeks. And so kind of what brought us here and like what's getting us here in technology, AGC as a whole, is obviously with the expo and how big it is. We all know that technology is on the forefront, and I personally try to stay a little bit away from the AI buzzwords, but I know it's there, and we're all hyper aware of it, and everybody has some semblance of it. But it kind of led to this term called what I call Appageddon, and it's just like you're getting bombarded with so many apps. Everybody's trying to help the construction industry, which is great, but it can be overwhelming even for people that are super involved in it. It's a lot to vet through, and so our group, if you will, we really wanted to focus. We wrote a white paper where it kind of laid out on helping companies how to select construction technology. We're actually doing a session tomorrow. It's called like Swim Class on Tech Selection. And so we really break it down on just kind of 5 big sections of how companies can take an approach to select technology, whether they're big or small, whether it's some crazy ERP or if it's something super small like change management. And we really want to help them with that, because the majority of the members of AGC, about 20,000 members, they're small to medium-sized firms. And so not everybody has an R&D department like the big guys. And so what might seem rudimentary to some small company, to a big company, is really profound to a smaller company. In like a step of like, hey, you need to get all the right folks involved when you're selecting a product. Like maybe you need to get accounting involved, get the field team involved, get legal involved maybe, or at least pick their brains and ask them some questions. So that's kind of how we got here on how to take that approach. That group focus is how do we help small companies swim through a lot of these technologies without really giving any direction. It's what works for you guys, right? Because every company and every project can be a little different. And then kind of come full circle, Grant, to kind of what you were saying of like, how do you even intake and start with swimming through that and doing that. One of the more recent things I shared with the group that I did years ago was kind of an intake form. So, I think that's actually going to pick up a lot of steam because you could see earlier this week when we brought it up, the concept of when you're getting bombarded with questions, hey, can you try this? Can you try this? Can you try this? You want to give people that genuine time because they're trying to make the industry better. And you're like, oh, yeah, I want to see this product. It's badass, you know? But that's a lot of time. If you are vetting 8 companies, that's 1 hour. That could be a whole day.
In one category.
Yeah. And so we really, what I mentioned was, what I did was, hey, if somebody reached out to me, please fill out this vendor questionnaire. And it would ask super simple questions like, hey, what's your info? First question, though, what's the cost? Not as a negative, and that's not a deterrent, but it's just a good thing to know.
Yeah.
And it's
pricing structure.
Or pricing structure,
Yeah.
right. And everyone's a little different, and I don't really have an opinion of what's right or wrong, but the point is, it's like, let's get that out of the way early. You know, I actually tell every tech company that we speak to, I've spoken to, is like, hey, can you just make your first slide post introductions about the cost? Because then what's happening is that when you're watching that presentation, you can put value. It's like, oh, you know what? Or I could see why this is helping. But then when it comes at the end, the price comes at the end, though, the other way, it's like, oh, gosh, you know, how do we pay for that? And so, but there could be creative ways to kind of support some of the tech. And, you know, I think it's just kind of the cost of doing business now because we have to build faster. You got to make as good of a decision as you can faster sometimes. And you're not always going to have the best information to make a decision, but if the technology can get you 80% of that information, you can try to make a decision. And so a decision is better than no decision. So, you know, I just recognize that sometimes that's just the cost of it, and there can be ways to pay for it. So that's kind of a spiel of what I've been a part of, what I've learned along the way, and kind of what we're trying to do to help the industry as a whole.
I've saved my questions at lunch for now, but I see Brian's wheels turning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually pretty interesting. You're like, you know, we have this questionnaire that helps companies that may not have this R&D department.
Right.
But what I've always found interesting is, you know, we're definitely being at the earlier stage of construction technology in the infancy. You saw this role of innovation or technology manager get born out of just happen to be the VDC manager, the most technical person at the company, experimenting with tech, and then evolve into this shift. It's not like there was a VDC degree, or no, it's not like a technology manager degree at a school where people are getting trained on these very specific questions you're asking. A lot of people, I mean, like myself, a lot of people here, it's you learn through making mistakes, and that's how you had the questionnaire was built through mistakes, not through some book or pamphlet.
No, you're right. Yeah, and some of the questions outside of cost are, you know, do you integrate with this, and this? You know, some companies have different ERPs that work for them, and so sometimes they want that integration, sometimes they don't, and that's not necessarily a deal breaker. But you don't learn it until you're kind of there. I always tell people when you come in, you're gonna just kind of be a fly on the wall and just learn and digest it and see how things kind of work. There might be reasons why things are a certain way, and sometimes not. Right? Somebody needs to ask, why are we doing that? And you're right. Yeah.
Or I mean, it also benefits the vendor. Like questions about IT should be getting asked now, because when you're about to sign the contract, salesperson's excited. Oh, we're going to sign today, and then IT is like,
whoa,
absolutely not. Yeah,
we don't use Macs. Like we don't use PCs. Like, well, we're not doing this.
Have you heard of Windows?
Yes,
that's what we're on.
And we're on Linux. We haven't upgraded our computers. So. It can go way different directions, and so it's good to ask those questions. That was a question I would ask.
Has the form changed over time? Like, has there been versions or iterations?
Oh yeah. I believe in continuous improvement. In my opinion, selection process is ongoing, and that goes for the vendor, that goes for people, everything. It's like I think you should always be aspiring to be better, and so for sure. I mean, it's probably version, 500 at this point, because I change. I'm like, ooh, I don't like how this psychologically reads, so I'm gonna change this, or I'm gonna do a drop down instead here because it's faster for them to fill it out. I think of the vendor too. It's like, think about how many calls they're making. They're obviously they're trying to make a buck, but it's a mix, right? Some folks are just in it to get bought out, and some folks genuinely are, I think, trying to make our industry really better, and there's a whole mixed bag. And so it's like, how can I make their time go more efficient too? It goes both ways. So, you kind of live and you learn, and you kind of tweak it. So
that's a heck of a a tech onboarding process when you're talking about starting up a test. I guess during the beta test, the proof of concept or whatever, how are you guys gauging, success metrics and stuff and passing
It
that
just
on?
varies, I mean, going back to a little to the form, I would stipulate like, hey, we're not going to meet with you until, or I'm not going to meet with you until you fill out the form. It's kind of like a roadblock. Like not because that's a negative. It's just like, hey, this lets us digest if we really even need this. Sometimes we don't even need the tool, but it's a good collection of, now we have a repository of, hey, somebody says, hey, I need a tool for this. And he says, oh, let's filter by tool type and let's go find these 5 guys and see what they got. But then how do you test it? It really varies. I mean, that's kind of the part of the white paper. What's one of the sections it works on? It's like setting goals. So like, what do we want to get out of this tool? It's number one, what's our pain point? Like, it's sometimes the simplest tool is Excel, and or a piece of paper. Like, I'm not obsessed.
Whoa.
Yeah,
You can't talk about paper. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So like unfortunately, or an iPad Mini, whatever.
iPad Mini plug.
Still waiting for
iPad
our
Mini.
He's got shares.
Yeah.
He's got shares.
I'm a big iPad Mini guy. It's the way to go. I don't
Fits in
understand.
your hand.
It fits in my hand. It's got a
Right-
pen.
right in the
It
vest.
goes in the vest. You already have a laptop, guys. You don't need an iPad Pro. Let's save some money.
Apple,
okay?
if you're listening,
That's-
we would love any sponsorships.
Yeah, that's true, iPad. But no, I mean, it doesn't have to, like, number one, like, how do you measure it? It just depends. I mean, that's the reality. I mean, what's the pain point of the problem that you're trying to solve? It could be just something that so simple, like, I hate copying this from here to here. And somebody just isn't educated on how to use the tool you have. And so how are you measuring it? It could be, it saved us this amount of hours, and that's kind of the goal, the metric that we're trying to get to. And then you're making a way to measure that. ROI is hard to measure sometimes because sometimes it's quality of life. Sometimes it's not necessarily cost. Sometimes it just makes our lives a little better and it stresses us lower. It creates less stress. So it varies by the tool, and I think ultimately that's where that white paper, a big focus on that is it's kind of the opposite of technology, because technology can sometimes be a bit cold. And so we're trying to introduce the concept of just empathy, of making sure that, hey, are we thinking about all the people that this affects down from the top executive level to our hourly folks at the bottom that might have to deal with this, and now they have another thing they have to do. So like really thinking about that. And so it just depends. It just depends.
Brian, you got something? I saw your wheels.
Yeah, I
turning
kind of
again.
want to take us a little bit of a different direction. If
Oh,
that's
classic, Brian.
Well, no, I mean, you talked a lot about hospital projects, and then you were like, when we first got on this large, like the first big job, like, I want to know a little bit more about like what specifically about the hospital world is so. I mean, what have you learned from that market sector?
Yeah.
That some people don't take. And I think one of those things is like
owners
owners tend to be more often to invest into these things because
I mean, healthcare is great. I mean, I can't. I love it. I think everybody there is just, they care about the project. It's really easy to. It's a real easy
Unifier.
unifier,
Yeah.
right? It's for the kids, right? And so one of my good friends, he always would say, like, hey, if you really want to charge us for this, it's for the kids. Come on.
But give a little background to how many you've worked on too, because it's
Yeah.
it's been cups, it's been new
Yeah.
builds, it's been renos.
I've been really lucky to be a part of 3 big hospital ground up jobs over different owners, and so 2 general hospitals and 1 children's hospital, and so it's been great. I've been really lucky in a couple renovation projects, and what really gets me going is, and I tell this to folks when we're starting and it's stressful, and they're complicated projects. And I said, hey, every January of the new year, usually these hospitals make a post about the first baby being born in these hospitals. And you see like, hey, first baby at such and such hospital.
The
and
last one you just did, they just posted.
Yeah.
The first patient.
Yeah, they just posted a first
Yeah.
patient. And so baby's the first patient, everything. And you see that first post of like, hey, the new baby of the new year is here in 2026. I'm kind of looking forward to that, to see the new kiddo, and the mom and the dad are there, and we have 2 kiddos, so I know kind of what comes with that now. And you see the background of the head wall, and you see outside the window, and you're like, dude, we were part of that. That's badass, like, and you call those memories of that team come back, and it's like, that's really cool. You were a small little piece, and and this family gets to kind of experience a really cool thing. And, you know, obviously a lot of sad things happen in hospitals too, but what keeps me going is just knowing, like, hey, someone's going to be using this space. And it's more special even now to me. Now we have 2 little kids, like 4 and 2. So it's just neat. It's a real cool, it's a real, it's so easy to inspire, but it's also so challenging that it goes well.
Let's talk about the owner side of it too, because I think what Brian's saying is very true, and I think probably why you and I connected so well is not only were you excited about some of the things that we were trying to do, but also the owners of those teams were also like, yeah, let's try this thing out. I mean, I think the first job I put a drone in your hands on was a new build, right? And it was like, man, this is amazing. And then the ownership team latched onto it. So yeah, I'm curious to hear.
Oh, they love it. I mean,
but why though? Because I think that's
well, low-hanging fruit, I think, marketing. You know, I mean, obviously, like, it's right in your face. It's so nice to have it. And years ago, that was such a pain to get. You'd have to hire a helicopter or get somebody posted up on another building if it exists. Like, it was hard. So it's just the ease of doing it is just incredible. So that's like number 1. 2, I think it really lets them get the excitement going for that community in a way that you just couldn't do it before with the stock photo. And I think people just are really mesmerized from that view. And then from their side, from a facility management point, I really think it's practical. I mean, it lets them see, like, where was this? Like, you know, there's going to be a problem. It's not if, but when. And it's like, where was this underground located? Where was this located? How did we do that? You know, so I think that's why they love it. I think that's just the biggest takeaways.
I mean, do you have any stories where you've kind of like educated the ownership on we can use it more? Like, for example, I was on a project yesterday actually, and once they started digging, turns out, you know, there was asbestos and it was some hot work, and it was a hot site, and then they pretty much had to pay an extra $40 million. They had to contain it, the tent, crane move it around just to excavate this site. I mean, those trucks, counting trucks, those add up, especially when you're shipping them across the country. So, like, I mean, hopefully not any scenario like that, but, you know, definitely beyond just the marketing side.
Yeah, I mean, we
there's so many stories.
the most recent one, it's semi-owner. I mean, it's owner related to an owner on a property that was right next to the hospital we just built, and we basically had to run a very long sanitary line through this gentleman's property, and kind of a old school farmer, rancher, real just good guy, and we brought him into the trailer. You know, his property was half a mile down, and we brought him in. We had the visual up with the annotations going, and he in real time told us, I got an electrical line here, I got a gas line here, and we drew it with the owner of the property, not necessarily the hospital owner, but the hospital owner found out about this, like, this is phenomenal. You know, like, here we are. They obviously don't want to disrupt the community because this is like out in the farmland, and so you have this massive hospital going up. Inherently, some people are going to be a little disturbed sometimes with the noise, and so we're obviously trying to be good stewards of the land and the noise and all the community, which we are there to serve. But at the same time, we don't want to, like, literally tear up their land, and then we want to leave it better than we found it, right? And so bringing them into the trailer, into the fold, having them with us draw it out, it was nice. And then we literally printed that out. The team went out in the field. They knew exactly where everything was, and we didn't have issues. So telling the owner about that, like the hospital owner, it's like, for them, it's like, thank goodness. Like, they obviously are there to serve the community, so that's part of it. I would say that taking care of those people there while we're building is just as important as taking care of them after we're gone. So
it's so funny you say it too, because that is the role. It's mitigating all these little micro potential issues before they become problems later on down the line. Ownership sometimes, and it's funny because even when you try to get feedback from the superintendents on the site of how well this product may have worked, they're like, oh yeah, I used it for this. Like, oh, why did you tell me? It's like, that's part of my job.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just kind of, it's like an unspoken thing. It's like table stakes. Like, yeah, I'm going to do that because I care, right? And you can't really teach that sometimes. Some folks got it, some guys don't, you know. So
In the 3 years that, or not 3 years, in the 3 projects that you've kind of gone from, has there been anything that you've been encouraged by that's like kind of, oh, that was maybe some very table stakes elementary stuff that we got to do there, a little bit more advanced to like now at the end? I mean, you just finished this last one, but I mean, you've been fortunate to see how the tech has really evolved from those 3 jobs. I mean, I remember you flying manually, you know, way even back in the day, and then that becomes automated, and like, oh, well, 360 captures are over here, drone stuff's over here. Oh, now it's on. Like, walk us through a little bit of like what you feel like has been the most significant change from that first project to maybe this last one that you just did.
I'd say the automation, personally. I think the automation's gotten really good. It's going to keep getting better.
What do you mean by automation?
Just pre-planned flights, and just how it's gone so much faster now with the hardware. It's like they're both coming to this inflection point where the hardware's really good, the automation's getting even better, and so it's like my position is, guys, there's no excuse to be doing this. You know, like the cost is fair, and it's like there's no reason we shouldn't be capturing this data to help us make decisions. And like, guys, you should have a scheduled time to do these flights, because back in the day it would take me twice as long, 3 times as long. Like, it's hard to explain to folks, like all the data migration you do and all the organization. Like, it's so much easier now.
When I was your age.
Yeah. yes. Yes. That's right.
old
We didn't
school
have
both
straps
ways.
on our hard hats. You know.
I had to fly this drone manually, and it took me forever.
I remember one of our drones broke one day, so I had to borrow an old phone that didn't have sensors on it. Well, I lost that drone like during a flight because it was so old. I didn't lose it, but it just it auto.
You didn't tell me you lost it. No, I'm just kidding.
We found it. Well, no, it fell. It landed. It descended.
There we go. Keywords here.
It descended back into a safe little green spot. But I remember thinking, this is not a very old drone, but it's like the sensor technology had already gotten so much better. And so that's my point. It's just like it's gotten so good, so fast, that it's so silly that folks that aren't doing it, it's like, man, I really just want to help them know, like, it's so easy to get into it. It's not that big of a cost, in my opinion, for the value you get. So
do you think, take me through a little bit of like the progression from project teams that you've gotten to work with too, right? Like 3 projects ago, it was like, what is this? This is another thing on our plate, to now like this last one of it truly becoming so standard, so regimented, so like, oh yeah, this is in our stand-up meetings. This is a no-brainer.
yeah, I think when people see the value of it, it's so easy. They buy in. And so that's kind of setting it up from the get-go, knowing like I have the vision of what this can be, right? Like I knew what we can use this tool for.
Not necessarily,
Yeah, sometimes you do have to, you know, that's part of the white paper too. It's not a shameless plug. It's genuinely like, well, that's a part of it. It's you know, I always believe you always have your skeptics are going to be thrown into 3 piles. You have your 33% that are going to be bought into try new things. 33% are skeptical. They're 50-50. They're like, I don't know if I really want to do this. This is kind of a weird tech. And then you should just accept that another third does not care. They're not going to change, and that's okay, you know. And you don't need to be obsessed with trying to change their minds, you know. Like, they don't need to drink a Kool-Aid. You shouldn't be trying to make them drink a Kool-Aid. It's just focusing on executing and providing a really good solution. Because I just don't think it's going to be energy that's going to take away from progress. Because you're going to make mistakes, you're going to fail, and then you just learn from it. And so going in, understanding that some folks just aren't going to want to use it, and that's okay, you know. They can, through osmosis, maybe they might come to your camp, maybe not. It's okay, but you shouldn't have that derail you. So coming in positive, hopefully you have some support from, you know, a higher level. That's always a big part of it. That's part of that white paper too. It's like you have to have a champion, and then you have maybe an advocate for that champion. And so that's kind of how.
Is there anyone that you names or whatnot, but like that you've seen that have just been like maybe in one of those third camps that have moved from camp to camp, that's like osmosis? Hey, what is that? Hey, now I'm using it to. Hey, they should use it. Like, Any people titles or positions that over the course of those three? It's a tough question.
Yeah, it is. I don't know if necessarily I've personally run into anybody that was so against it that they didn't change, but just they were more on the spectrum of real skeptical. And that's who I would pour into to say, hey, have you tried this yet? Like, not coming into them, but maybe they have a problem. I'm like, well, you could try it looking at it on instruction side or on drone deploy. You know, you'll probably find
iPad Mini.
Or iPad Mini, you know what I mean?
Just slide it across the desk.
You know, oh, this thing that we were talking about the other day. Oh yeah, no, it's right here. It's kind of like, it's very similar. Like, you know how I would get people to use. If you guys hear this that know this, the Procore. So I'm a big getting everybody that's on the job site into the Procore directory, to the job directory, whatever the directory is. Like everything from the operator of the elevator to guy sweeping to, you know, master electrician, the whole 9 yards, everybody. Because on a Saturday, I don't want to be calling somebody on their day off asking for somebody's number. So if somebody would ask me, hey, do you have so-and-so's number? I'm like, have you checked Procore directory? You know, like, have you checked it? Have you looked at it? And like, and it didn't matter who you were. If you were, what position you were, I'd ask like, oh man, have you ever heard of Procore? You know, and I know they're on it.
Yeah.
And then, because what you got guys sending text messages of contact info. It's the dumbest thing. Like, so it's kind of like setting it up right, being super obsessed about getting it organized. And then that way, when somebody has a problem, you're like, hey, have you looked at this?
Yeah.
Go take a look at it.
It is interesting to think of like how the thing that transitions them from state to state, those three that you mentioned, is really the pain, right? It's like, oh, I need someone's number. I'm going to go to the directory. It's like, oh, I need that photo. I don't know where it's at on my phone. I don't know where it's at in Procore. I don't know. Like, oh, well, hey, by the way, it's location here, time there. Like, talk about how pains have kind of helped elevate the growth of what you've seen some of that stuff help with too, because no one uses it until it becomes a pain. And then when it's a pain, it's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say just a big thing I'd focus on is I have like a 2-click rule. So like some soups, and I say soups because just field guys in general, you know, they're the ones that ultimately I think are making some really tough decisions in the field. They need as good of information as they can get. And so I kind of tell just everybody like, hey guys, like, to minimize the pain, I don't want somebody to have to click more than 2 times to get to something. You know, like, so that's like a browser and then a hyperlink, and then all that stuff's right there. And so it's like, that's a pain that we spend so much time looking for info that's kind of one of the biggest drivers for the way I kind of approach setting things up. It's like, how do we get the right data in the right spot to get it quickly to somebody, versus sending emails and sending all this. So it's kind of finding those pain points and saying, what are you doing a lot that's wasting your time? And it's pretty easy to find on a job site. You can see it with guys like are scrolling and looking for stuff, or like you can sense it. You can sense it.
Felipe, I just want to ask like funding. So how is it set up? You said Beck and Skiles, you're moving on to Brassfield. So you're innovating on a project. Is it typically through a project budget, or do you guys have an innovation budget? That's a question that we talk about quite a bit, like innovation through project funding or innovation through overhead. How have you seen success on either? You
know, it varies by job, and I don't know if there's a right model. You know, some people have, you know, an IT multiplier that they kind of divide up across all their projects. And sometimes some jobs will just, if they're doing a pilot, maybe that job will pay for it. And maybe the owner is even willing to pay for it, right? Because they're going to get value of it afterwards. And so I don't know if there's a right way. You know, I don't know if...
How do you guys list it out in the white paper?
It's just more talking about, that's in the paper we talk about...
this infamous paper, by the way. We'll put a link to it.
Yeah, we'll put a link to it. We'll share it. It'll vary. I mean, it kind of comes back to how are we measuring the ROI? Are we planning to introduce this company wide? To how do we want to scale it? Starting small, scaling gradually, and so it just varies. I mean, I don't really have a definitive answer because every job can be a little different. But the end goal is to how do we ultimately get this on every job and fund it, because I just think it's a part of doing business. I think as tech gets more expensive, we need to get better at how do we delineate, do we really need to be paying this amount for what we're using it for? And that's kind of a harder conversation because you have so many different types of jobs, from renovation to ground up to just site jobs and just interior jobs. So it kind of becomes a little difficult sometimes. So
Do you think you can break it down by project type, though? Like, obviously, you've been on healthcare projects, so have you seen it a certain way on those jobs? Or is it like, nah, it's kind of all over the place?
it tends to be all over the place. I think we're at a weird inflection point where the pricing is becoming a big inhibitor. And I think now jobs are trying to adopt it more. And so I think there's going to be a good bit of, I won't call it revolution, but just there's going to have to be some type of reset button to say, okay, how are we doing this? How do we want to do it?
I think some of that reset is like acquisitions happening, right?
Yeah.
Tools coming together. It's like instead of paying for 3 tools, like, well, what tool does all those 3 things?
Yeah.
Maybe not amazingly, but at least has it there that they can grow and be a partner with.
Well, that's funny. On our little tech stack session we did at the innovation committee earlier this week, the intent was to see, are people paying for something twice and they don't even know it, and have they fragmented some of their processes in a way that maybe, do we consolidate to this tool? Does it do it perfectly what we need? No, but it does it good enough and it saves us money. And it's kind of having that discussion of like, we're not necessarily compromising, but we're making a business decision because ultimately it's better for our company or our team. And that's kind of our intent. It's like, what's right for you guys? Because, you want people to have choice and you want to have them to use what works for them. So I think get the right value.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think one of the biggest opportunities right now for technology managers specifically is in the art of the cost recovery.
Yeah.
Like really having your numbers dialed in on how many hours are we billing to each projects, like which projects are getting billed, how are we recovering these costs, and then also like even just our own internal overhead of, are we training people? Is that being captured somewhere? So
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a hard thing to do. I love the comment you made at the top of this is like, no one probably here that works for a general contractor or just a construction company went to school for, call it change and process management in technology. Yep. Like that's not a thing. I mean, we think about these innovation managers or chief innovation officers, or VDC is a little bit more formalized. That is becoming more, call it certificates, job path and career path. But I mean, your the stint you did in operational technology, like.
Yeah, so I went back
the
to
school of YouTube here,
it's what's fascinating. I think construction is one of the most unique industries where, as a builder, you touch every industry. Finance, accounting, legal, your utilities for cities. Permitting, design, engineering. Technology is just another part of the spoke. And I think you got to be good at it. You got to be able to vet it. And so
it is interesting though. I'm looking down at the expo hall for Auburn's here. They have a booth.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Talk about some of the other universities that are here that.
Yeah, they do the whole AGC convention's badass because they bring in a lot of student chapters.
Yeah.
So
I did see some students that were.
And so in the back you have the big student chapter section, and so it's great. It's a great opportunity for students to, especially now, they're getting exposure to some of the awards that they're doing here. And
look, like a student comes here and they're like, do I use like 10% of these tools?
Yeah.
Which 10% is like 10 of these tech stacks here, right? Like it is interesting to expose them here, but.
Well, I think that's a reflection of kind of like maybe kind of that new generation coming in. It's a lot of information overload, and there's kind of a reflection of that. Mm-hmm. So they're having to learn how to swim through this, and they're probably already doing it on their side with all the apps that they deal with. So, but yeah, the student chapters here, they kind of get exposure to obviously a lot of companies, a lot of vendors, see what's out there and what opportunities are there. So that's kind of the student chapter engagement is one of the coolest parts of it, because you really see the students that are super invested in the industry. They're coming in, they're hungry, and I think we're only as good as. I always say we're only as good as our trade partners, we're only as good as the people coming in, and everybody that supports it from a GC side, because it's a team effort.
Yeah. I want to kind of land us here a little bit, and I want to respect your time because we're in between you and some mingling and some other things on your agenda here. I want to kind of wrap us up with this idea of like, all right, so a lot of the folks that tune in here listen, innovation managers, folks that are dealing with some sort of technology within their companies. Like, what would you say to encourage them on a couple fronts in your involvement with AGC? You've been involved and can look back a little bit in time. Your involvement about maybe career changes. You've been at a couple different companies now too. Like, take this wherever you'd want to go, but I think what we, the three of us, Brian Jarvis and I, love to do is just like, we understand the kind of responsibility that we have in putting guests like you on to really diversify who they may get to hear from, take some encouragement from in a lot of ways. But yeah, that's a softball question. But for the folks that are tuning in here, what would you want to tell them? And again, they're going to see the white paper. We'll link to all that stuff from the logistical standpoint. But like, what's maybe something that you would weed them with?
Yeah, I guess for that particular role, I would say to try to dive in and try to do as many cross training as you can do, like cross training roles before you even get into that role. Because, and what I mean by that is specifically spending time on the PE PM track, spending time in the field, spending time maybe even estimating, and really getting your boots wet and dirty on what folks are doing, because it's kind of is a rough industry, and there's certain things that people just don't understand until they work in the field. And not really a profound statement, of like working in the field before you go in technology. But if you can do cross training, that was really, for me, one of the most beneficial things when I kind of moved into that superintendent role for a little bit, pretending to be a superintendent. And it just, the amount of effort it takes to do one simple thing that you think, somebody might think it's simple. It's so much effort. And so I say that because technology is trying to solve a lot of really tough problems. And sometimes it's not quite that easy. And the more exposure you have to different projects, different teams, different styles, different personalities, it lets you gauge and approach them better, because you could literally have two technology managers and one can totally fail on this project adopting it because he took a really different approach than somebody else. And it was just listening, right? And so I would say the cross-training creates that empathy of like understanding the pain points that people are dealing with. Like a simple thing like emptying a dumpster or getting your porta potties clean can derail a job. And it seems like, what? But it's like, those are kind of the things that sometimes folks are dealing with. And sometimes technology can't solve that. Maybe not yet. And so I think the cross-training I would recommend is like, hey, if you can do that, if you have the opportunity to do that, I think that's going to make you a better technology manager, in my opinion. And then, not just the other, second step I would say is just don't get discouraged. You're going to fail, and that's okay. I think that's part of it. In the context of failing is just might not go as the way you thought it would, and that's okay. And just accepting that and kind of continuously improving on it are the two things. Otherwise, if you're going to give up if you think the first time you fail, you're going to be like, oh God, this didn't go the way I wanted it to go.
Yeah. Brian, any thoughts to close this out? Jarvis?
No, I'll second that. I think Suffolk Construction, when I was interning there, they had a career start program where they would allow you to do 6 months in 3 different roles: estimating, PE, and then VDC actually. So definitely, not something that's off the table when you're negotiating where you want to go.
Yeah, it's hard to do. Not every company can do that. I didn't have a formal training program; it just kind of happened. But really, just never getting too caught up in the ladder of this step and this step and this step. Life can take you in a different way, and so comparison is the thief of joy. Sometimes when people compare titles and tracks and opportunities, and so everyone's track's a little different. So it's just kind of knowing, I'm going to try that. Like objectively look, could I learn a lot from that role? And I'd say you can most of the time.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And then just for me, the stories and the impacts that stick with me the most are, I was in the field, I had this specific problem, this tech stack would have solved it for me. And even, 10 years later, it's like, man, if only we had ... drone play, whatever it is, whatever the solution is at this point, those are the things that stick with you, and you can't replace that with, well, my professor said, it's something that's got to be lived experience. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Well, and then I think one more thing too, it's like consistency. It's kind of like we all know we need to be working out. We all know we need to be eating better, but we don't do it. Because, a lot of time, not everybody.
I'm not going to show that picture because of the inconsistency of how we look.
Connor, please show that.
In between those two pictures.
Yeah, we can Photoshop it, however you like.
I probably got a better looking beard. You look much more clean shaven.
But no, it's like you got to be, I always say a big thing is, I'd say one thing I forgot to mention was intentionality. So like folks going out take photos and stuff, it's like, that's great. But if you're just doing it once sporadically and then, oh yeah, we're going to get photos again. Oh yeah, I forgot to get photos. Like that's not going to work, guys. Like they're similar to job site schedules. There needs to be a schedule of capturing data capture schedule, and it's got to be intentional. And every time you go out to that site, I am capturing this space once a month, every month. And you know what? Sometimes 9 of those 10 photos are going to be useless. But that random one that you took, on a Thursday right before you left the job site, that could have been it that solved a big problem. Yeah. But this sporadicness is not going to create success. And that's really, I think, where you fail. Because teams are like, oh, you don't have a photo of that? I don't want to use this. So, like, I would start off, it goes back to the original thing. It's starting small, planning it. We're going to review this technology. We're going to schedule how we're going to do it, because that's the worst. People are like, oh, they come onto the job site, they try it out, and then they never come back. It's not going to work. So, yeah, just being intentional.
It is interesting how, you talked about the next generation and things like that. That is definitely something I struggled with at the get-go, is like, I'm such a great starter. I love starting things, but I'm not a very good follow-through and finisher. And it's tricky because you will eventually learn that lesson, and it will come back to you, whether you learn it on your own, a project team teaches that for you, or you will go out and collectively have some things to, work on as a result of that. So it is fascinating to think. And those are, we didn't get into this, but just like the human and psychology side of it, I think tech is just going to be a fascinating thing to think of. Literally we're looking out at, hundreds of vendors here. All of these have some human element, who works on it, who collaborates within it, how it's going to change their processes. And yeah, it's a big deal. It's exciting because you know the impact that obviously a lot of these tools can have, but it is very overwhelming. And it'll be cool to share some of the resources you guys talked about. And yeah, just maybe one last plug. How can folks get involved in AGC? What's kind of thoughts around, hey, if you don't know anything about kind of your local chapters or opportunities to get involved, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I would start with your local chapter, and that's a really homegrown aspect of like getting involved with the community. I think that's the big part of it. Those 89 chapters across the country are great. And even if you're not a chair there and you just want to become more on this national level, I'd say the CLC,
no more acronyms. Give us the acronym.
It's CLC.
What is that?
It's the Construction Leadership Committee. No, it's so within the big conglomerate of the AGC, you got a lot of. I don't know if we have enough committees, but this particular committee is really just the younger folks in construction. Mm-hmm. And if you look at a lot of the big building chairs, past presidents, they were a part of that. Mm-hmm. And so, visually, if you could imagine like the entire United States all funneling up to this little CLC group, you don't have to start there, but that just happens to be a big springboard. And that's a great opportunity for folks to get involved. And from there, you would get exposure to the different committees within the group. The Project Innovation Delivery is one of them. You got lean committees, you got specialty contractor committees, business development committees, AIA, AGC committees, trying to get design teams integrated better. So there's a lot of opportunity to get exposure to just the industry itself to make it better and lift it up.
Well said. Felipe, it's fun. It took 6 years to get here, but here we are, dropping some truth bombs. And it's cool. It's fun to have seen our friendship grow through a lot of different projects, teams, companies, roles, all sorts of stuff. And yeah, man, you're a gem. It's cool to see the work and involvement that you've got to have, and the impact, honestly, that you've got to have. We both know a gentleman by the name of Jeff Forbes, and he talks a lot about how the legacy you leave in your industry is far greater than the projects you worked on. And I think that's it's cool to see you step into that and yeah, lead by example. So we're thankful for you, man. Thanks for coming on here.
I appreciate you guys having me on. This is fun.
Yeah, good time.
Absolutely.
Well, we're just going to camp out here because honestly,
My head's so big now. I don't know if I'm going to be able to walk through the door. But
that's awesome.
no, yeah, it's cool. It's fun.
Yeah,
It's a really cool view too. Like this is very.
I mean, this is all you. You got us here to be here. I walked in this room and I was like, dang. We usually are stuffed in a closet, or Brian and I were buying extra booths that we don't tell the conference people, and we say, hey, we're actually just a podcast team. We're not a company.
No, this is definitely quite a view. I feel like I'm at a Formula One race or something.
It is
It's
pretty.
about to start,
Yeah,
so.
we're in the barracks. Love it. Felipe, great to catch up, man. Thanks for tuning in. For folks that are listening, we'll catch you on the next one, and take care.
Thanks, Chance.
All right.